You know, there's something rather peculiar about death that I've been contemplating for quite some time now. Something that seems so obvious once you see it, yet remains hidden behind our cultural programming and personal fears. And it's simply this: you will never not ever experience your own death. Now, before you dismiss this as some clever wordplay or philosophical trick, allow me to invite you into a different way of seeing. Because this insight, once truly grasped, doesn't merely change how you think about death. It transforms how you experience being alive right now. What we call death appears to be the most certain fact of existence, doesn't it? The one thing we can be absolutely sure of. Yet I want to suggest that what we fear most about death is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of consciousness itself. Today we're exploring why you will never experience your own death, what this reveals about the nature of time and consciousness, and why understanding this might be the most liberating discovery you ever make. This channel exists for those seeking philosophical depth and psychological insight into consciousness, mortality, and the nature of existence itself. If these explorations resonate with you, consider subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing your reflections in the comments. What we're examining today might fundamentally transform your relationship with death and therefore with life. You see, most of us imagine death as if we will somehow be present at our own funeral, as if we'll be lying in the coffin with our eyes closed, experiencing the darkness, the confinement, the eternal separation from everything we love. But that's utterly fascinating, isn't it? We imagine death as an experience of nothing, but an experience of nothing is still an experience, which means consciousness is still there. Let me approach this another way. Can you remember what it was like before you were born? Do you experience it as an infinite darkness, an eternal void that somehow preceded your existence? Of course not. There simply isn't anything there to remember. There's no experience of non-existence, because experience requires existence. And herein lies the great cosmic joke about death. We spend our lives dreading something that, from the perspective of our own consciousness, cannot possibly happen. The light doesn't go out for the light. The screen doesn't disappear for the images upon it. Think of it this way. You've gone to sleep countless times, haven't you? And in dreamless sleep, there's no experience of time passing. One moment you're falling asleep, and the next you're waking up. The 8 hours in between simply vanish. They aren't experienced as darkness or emptiness. They aren't experienced at all. Death, I propose, is similar, but with one crucial difference. There's no you that wakes up afterward to reflect back on the gap. But from the perspective of your awareness, that makes no difference whatsoever. There's still no experience of death itself. Our fear, you see, comes from imagining death while still alive. It's a bit like trying to imagine what it's like to have your head cut off while still feeling your neck. It's a logical impossibility, a paradox created by thought itself. So what dies? Certainly this body will dissolve back into the elements from which it came. But the awareness that you fundamentally are, that which knows experience, has no beginning or end, because it exists only in the eternal now. And that brings us to our next contemplation. You know, we're all under the strangest hypnosis. We're convinced that time flows from past to future and that we're moving along with it like little boats being carried by a great river. But is that really the case? Let's look more closely. When exactly do you exist? Well, you might say, I exist now, of course. And you'd be absolutely right. But have you ever experienced any moment except now? Has anyone in the entire history of human consciousness ever experienced anything except the present moment? The past, you see, doesn't exist except as memory, which happens now. The future doesn't exist except as anticipation, which also happens now. Your birth a story told now. Your death a concept imagined now. All we ever have, all we ever are, is this immediate experience. So when people speak of death as the end of consciousness, I find that rather amusing. Because consciousness only ever happens now, and now has no beginning or end. It's not in time. It's what contains time. Think of watching a sunset. The sun appears to be moving, descending below the horizon. But we know it's actually the earth that's turning. In the same way, it appears that we're moving through time, approaching death with each passing moment. But what if it's time that's moving through us, while awareness itself remains eternally present? You see, death can only exist as a concept in the mind, never as a lived reality. By the time death arrives, you're not there to meet it. And as long as you're there, death hasn't arrived. The two never coincide in direct experience. This is why I say that from the standpoint of consciousness, You will never experience your own death. Not because you'll somehow survive bodily death, though that's another conversation entirely, but because the aware presence that you fundamentally are exists only in the timeless now. And if you pay very close attention, you might notice something rather extraordinary. This now isn't just a fleeting moment that's constantly being replaced by the next now. It's always the same now. The content changes, yes. Thoughts, sensations, perceptions come and go. But the nowness itself, the quality of presence, remains unchanged. This is what the mystics mean when they speak of eternity. Not endless time, but the transcendence of time altogether. And it's available to you directly, right here, right now, as the simple fact of being aware. This awareness which you already are was never born and will never die. It is the still point around which the entire cosmos turns. If you're engaging deeply with these ideas about consciousness, time, and the deathless nature of awareness, I've created an ebook called Beyond the Shadow that explores Carl Jung's core psychological concepts. It examines the unconscious mind, the nature of the self, and the individuation process, all of which relate to understanding what you are beyond the mortal body. If you're serious about this inner work, you'll find the link in the description. Now let's dive into something rather fascinating about this human predicament. If what I've been suggesting is true, that awareness itself is timeless and never experiences its own absence, then why are we so terrified of death? What exactly is it that fears annihilation so desperately? It's what I call the ego, this sensation of being a separate self, a lonely little me imprisoned inside a bag of skin, peering out at a world that's fundamentally other. This ego, you see, is not your fundamental nature. It's more like a character in a play that awareness is performing. The ego defines itself through memory and anticipation. It's the story of me, where I came from, what I've done, where I'm going. And because this story extends in time, the ego naturally fears the end of time. Because without time, what becomes of its precious storyline? You might notice, if you look very carefully, that this ego is never actually found in present experience. It's always just around the corner. Try to pin it down and it vanishes like a mirage. Ask yourself, who am I? And watch how thought rushes in with labels and descriptions, memories, roles, qualities, but never the actual I itself. This is why death terrifies us. The ego senses correctly that it won't survive death. The story ends. The character dissolves. But here's the cosmic joke. The ego doesn't exist in the way it thinks it does even now. It's a process, not an entity, a verb, not a noun, a song, not a singer. What you truly are is not this temporary pattern called the ego, but the awareness within which all patterns arise and dissolve. And this awareness, vast, boundless, clear, is untouched by birth and death. It's the space in which all of life's drama unfolds. So the ego's fear of death is based on a case of mistaken identity. It's as if the actor has become so identified with the role that they've forgotten they're acting. They dread the final curtain because they believe the play is reality. But what if death is not the end of the show, but simply the moment when you remember that you're not just the character, but the whole theater? Not just the wave, but the entire ocean? Not just a person experiencing life, but life itself experiencing being a person? The ego cannot conceive of this because it thinks exclusively in terms of survival or annihilation. But what I'm pointing to transcends both. It's not that you survive death or that you don't survive death. It's that what you fundamentally are was never in time to begin with, and so was never subject to birth or death at all. You know, this whole business of being a separate individual is quite peculiar when you really look at it. Where exactly do you end and the rest of the universe begin? We think it's obvious. The boundary of my skin marks where I stop and everything else starts. But is that really so? Consider your breathing. Is the air in your lungs you or not you? What about when you exhale it? Does it suddenly become not you? And what about the air you're about to inhale in your next breath? Is it already a little bit you, since your very existence depends on it? Or take your food. The apple you ate yesterday has now become your body. Where exactly did it transform from not you to you? In your mouth, your stomach, your bloodstream? The truth is, what we call an individual is more like a whirlpool in a stream. The water is constantly flowing through it, yet the pattern maintains a certain integrity. But the whirlpool is not separate from the stream. It is a pattern that the stream is doing. In the same way, you are not separate from the universe. You are a pattern that the universe is doing. A very complex and beautiful pattern, to be sure, but still a process within a larger process. So when we contemplate death, we're usually thinking, oh dear, this separate me is going to disappear. But that separate me is already an illusion. It's a useful fiction for practical purposes. Rather like the equator, a line that helps us navigate but doesn't actually exist in physical reality. What dies is not a separate entity but a particular pattern, a unique dance that the cosmos has been performing for a while. The dancer disappears, but the dancing continues. The wave subsides, but the ocean remains. You see, personal extinction is impossible because the person was never really there to begin with, at least not in the way we imagine. What we call I is not a thing but an activity, a process of the whole universe. And the universe doesn't die when one of its patterns transforms. I'm reminded of a wonderful Zen saying, before enlightenment, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. During enlightenment, mountains are no longer mountains and rivers are no longer rivers. After enlightenment, mountains are again mountains and rivers again rivers. Before we question our separate existence, we take it for granted. As we inquire more deeply, we see that this separation is illusory. And finally, we return to the ordinary world, but now we see it as a unified field of being, playing at being many. So death is not the end of you. It's the end of a particular way that the universe has been expressing itself. And since you are not separate from the universe, but rather the universe itself in human form, what is there to fear? The play of existence continues, taking on new forms, exploring new possibilities forever and ever. For those wanting to explore how to work practically with these insights about the self, illusion, and the nature of existence in daily life, I've also created Dialogues with the Unconscious, a 30-day practical guide for applying Jungian psychology through exercises in shadow work, active imagination, and integrating unconscious material. It's not theory, it's application. The link is in the description if this work resonates with you. Now, let's explore one of my favorite metaphors for understanding our relationship to eternity. Imagine the ocean, vast, deep, powerful, and on its surface countless waves rise and fall. Each wave has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Each has a unique shape and character. Some are large, some small, some turbulent, some gentle. If you were to identify with a particular wave, you might feel very separate and vulnerable. You would see other waves as separate entities. You would see your own beginning in time and anticipate your ending. You would feel the temporary nature of your existence and perhaps cling desperately to your particular form. But what are you really? Are you just the wave, or are you also the water that forms the wave? And if you are the water, then what happens to you when the wave subsides? Do you die, or do you simply return to the formless depths from which you arose? The wave is a form that the ocean temporarily takes. In the same way, you are a form that consciousness temporarily takes. The individual consciousness that you call me is like a wave on the ocean of cosmic consciousness. What we fear is the dissolution of form. But the formless awareness that gives rise to all forms is never born and never dies. It's the eternal ground of being, the source and substance of all that appears. Think of it this way. The wave doesn't contain the ocean contains the wave. Similarly, you don't contain consciousness. Consciousness contains you. You are not in the world. The world is in you in awareness, in the field of knowing that you fundamentally are. When the body dies, a particular expression of consciousness transforms. But consciousness itself, that which knows experience, remains untouched, just as the ocean remains when a wave subsides. Now, I'm not suggesting that you, as Jane or John, with all your memories and personality traits, will survive death intact. That's not the point. The point is that what you most essentially are was never contained in a particular human form to begin with. You are not a wave pretending to be the ocean. You are the ocean pretending for a while to be a wave. And the game of pretending eventually comes to an end. But the player doesn't disappear. Only the role does. So when someone asks what happens after death, I'm inclined to smile and say, what happened before birth? You return to the source from which you came, not as an individual, but as the boundless awareness that temporarily expressed itself as an individual. And that's not something to fear. It's something to celebrate. It's the recognition that you are far vaster, far more magnificent than this temporary human form could ever contain. There's a delightful Hindu idea that I've always found rather illuminating. They say that the fundamental nature of the universe is Lila, divine play, or cosmic game. And what sort of game is the cosmos playing? Hide and seek. The Upanishads tell us that which is the finest essence this whole world has as its soul. That is reality, that is the self, that art thou. In Sanskrit, tat tavam asi. You are that. The ultimate reality playing at being all these separate things. But for the game to be interesting, the one must forget that it is one. It must pretend, with great conviction, to be many. Just as an actor must temporarily forget their real identity to play a role convincingly, or a dreamer must forget their dreaming to be fully immersed in the dream. So here we are, the one playing at being many, having divided itself into countless seemingly separate selves. And death in this grand scheme is simply the moment when a particular game of hide and seek comes to its conclusion. The mask comes off. The actor steps out of character. The dream dissolves. And what's revealed? Only what was always there, the true identity that was hiding all along. Think of a child playing hide and seek. There's such joy in being hidden, in the delicious tension of waiting to be found. But there's also joy in being found in the relief of revelation and the laughter of recognition. It was you all along. Death may be just such a moment of recognition. Not an end, but a revelation. Not a loss, but a homecoming. Not darkness descending, but a veil lifting. You see, consciousness loves to play this game of limitation and separation. It loves to narrow its infinite scope into a single perspective, to experience itself as this or that particular being. There's an exquisite delight in it, just as there's delight in becoming absorbed in a novel or a film, temporarily forgetting our wider reality. But every game must eventually end. Every novel reaches its final page. Every film has its closing scene. Not because something has gone wrong, but because that's the nature of a game, a story, an experience. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So what happens when the game of being you comes to its conclusion? Does consciousness disappear? No more than an author disappears when they finish writing a book. The author simply stops pretending to be the characters. They return to their broader identity, perhaps to write another book, to tell another story, to play another game. I'm not saying that you, with your particular memories and quirks, will be reincarnated exactly as you are now. That would be missing the point entirely. I'm saying that what you truly are, the aware space in which all experience happens, is what incarnates as everything. It's incarnating as the entire cosmos right now. So death is not the opposite of life. It's the backdrop against which the dance of life becomes meaningful. It's the silence between notes that makes music possible. It's the empty space that gives form to a vase. Without death, life would have no shape, no drama, no poignancy, no beauty. And in this cosmic game of hide and seek, you are both the hider and the seeker, both the one who is lost and the one who is found, both the one who forgets and the one who remembers, both the wave that rises and falls and the ocean that remains. I've been talking about eternity, but I want to be very clear about what I mean by that word. Most people think of eternity as endless time, as if you'd live forever and ever in some sort of sequence. But that's not eternity at all. That's just very, very long time. And it would be utterly boring. No, eternity isn't endless time. It's the transcendence of time altogether. It's the recognition that time is a construction of thought, a convenient fiction that helps us navigate our practical affairs. You see, we divide time into past, present, and future. But where exactly is the past? Can you show it to me? Can you experience it directly? Of course not. The past exists only as memory, and memory happens now. Similarly, the future exists only as anticipation, and anticipation happens now. So there is only now. There has only ever been now. There will only ever be now. And now isn't in time. It's what contains time. This is why I say you will never experience your own death, because death is conceived as a future event, and the future is never actually experienced. By the time the future arrives, it's already the present. And in the present, you're always alive. Otherwise, you wouldn't be experiencing anything at all. The Buddha called this amata the deathless. Not because the body doesn't die, but because what you truly are exists only in the timeless now, which is never born and never dies. Think of time as a movie being projected on a screen. The screen itself doesn't move or change. It's not affected by the drama playing out upon it. In the same way, awareness, what you fundamentally are, doesn't move through time. Time moves through awareness. This is not merely a philosophical notion. It's something you can verify in your own direct experience. Right now, as you're listening to me, notice the aware space in which these words are appearing. Notice the awareness that knows the sensations in your body, the sounds in your environment, the thoughts in your mind. This awareness is timeless. It doesn't come and go. It doesn't age or deteriorate. It's ever present, ever fresh, ever new. It's what the mystics call the eternal now. And here's something quite extraordinary. This now that you're experiencing is the very same now that I experienced when I was alive. It's the same now that the Buddha experienced 2,500 years ago. It's the same now that will be experienced by those who come long after we're gone. There's only one now, and we all share it. It's the eternal present in which the entire cosmic drama unfolds. And it's what you are beneath all your temporary identifications with body, mind, and personality. So when the body dies, a particular perspective on the eternal now comes to an end. But the now itself, the awareness that you fundamentally are, remains untouched, just as the screen remains when the movie ends. This, I believe, is the true meaning of eternal life. Not that you as a particular person will live forever, but that what you truly are was never in time to begin with. It's the deathless reality that's present right now, as the simple fact of being aware. So we return to where we began. You will never experience your own death. Not because you'll magically survive as the person you think you are, but because what you fundamentally are, pure awareness, the timeless now, the ocean pretending to be a wave, was never born and will never die. The fear of death is based on a case of mistaken identity. You think you're the character, the wave, the temporary pattern. And yes, that pattern will dissolve. The story will end. The wave will subside. But you are not just that. You are also the awareness in which the pattern appears, the ocean from which the wave arises, the eternal now in which all stories unfold. And this understanding doesn't diminish the preciousness of life. Quite the opposite. When you realize that this moment is all there is, that this now is eternal, every experience becomes luminous with significance. The mortality of the body makes life more beautiful, not less. The temporary nature of all forms gives the dance its poignancy. So death is not something to fear. It's not the end of you. It's simply the end of a particular game, a particular dream, a particular expression of what you are. And what you are cannot die, because it was never born. It exists only here, only now, only as this awareness that knows these words, these sensations, this moment. Welcome to immortality. You've been living it all along. If these explorations have resonated with you, subscribe to this channel for more philosophical and psychological depth on consciousness, death, and the nature of existence. Share this with someone who might be struggling with mortality. Leave your reflections in the comments. I genuinely want to know, what changes when you realize you'll never experience your own death? For those ready to go deeper, check out Beyond the Shadow for understanding Jung's core psychological framework about the self beyond the ego, and Dialogues with the Unconscious for practical 30-day exercises exploring the nature of consciousness. Links are in the description. Remember, you will never experience your own death, not because you'll survive, but because what you are was never born. You are the deathless awareness, the eternal now, the ocean playing at being a wave. Until next time, or rather, until this same eternal now appears again as whatever form it chooses, keep seeing, keep being, keep recognizing what you truly are.